Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
It's an NFC West rubber match between the Seahawks and the Rams with a trip to the Super Bowl on the line. No big deal. Also, Sean Payton and the Broncos are going to have to make some magic happen versus Drake Maye and the Pats without their starting quarterback. And the Ravens are bringing in Jesse Minter as their next head coach.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
After splitting two insane regular season matchups, the Rams and Seahawks meet for a third time in the NFC Championship game on Sunday. Locked On Rams host Doug McCain previewed the title clash with Corbin Smith on a recent crossover edition of Locked On Rams and Locked On Seahawks.
Yeah, I think you hit on something incredibly important. I think both Rams fans and Seahawks fans can convince themselves that they should have won both of those games. And I don't think you have to really work that hard to get there. I think it's a reasonable position for both groups. I think maybe two and a half things need to happen for the Rams to have a very good chance to win this game. Number one, and Sean McVay talked about it after the Bears win, that is his – I don't even know the right word for it, Corbin, his reluctance maybe to run the football. He is Sean McVay. He likes to pass the ball. He likes to put the ball in the hand of his quarterbacks and his wide receivers. There was a point in the Bears game in the fourth quarter where the Rams had passed it 33 times and run it 11, despite the fact that the running game was averaging about 5.5 yards a carry. It was working. Now, they finally went back to it late in the fourth quarter, and guess what happened? They scored another touchdown. It's if he can go and run the ball against his better angels, and look, I'm not complaining about Sean McVay at all. I wouldn't trade him for any coach in the league, but he gets stuck in these modes where it's just pass. So if they have a more balanced attack, I like that. I think that's number one. Number two is, and you mentioned his name a second ago, the Rams have had trouble on special teams all season long. The game they lost in Thursday night up in Seattle turned on a special teams play. They were unable to cover a punt. Shaheed takes it back for a touchdown, and that game went from this is just about over to buckle up. The game is basically tied at this point. They've struggled on special teams. We saw them struggle in Carolina where they had a kick block. We've seen them struggle with it all season long. They finally got something done when Harrison Mevis made the game-winning kick in the cold, but 47-yarder, I mean, it's the NFL. He should make that kick, right? Their special teams is still something they struggle with. Ethan Evans had a 33-yard punt in a very crucial situation in Chicago. Kick the ball through the end zone on kickoffs, kick it out of bounds on punts. Do not let Shaheed put you in a situation that you don't. And I'm being lit like, do not let that man catch a kick and do what he does. I think that's it. And then lastly, get a little lucky. You know, these they're so evenly matched. You look at it in the two games, 1 point separates them. In the two games, 1 yard separates them. You got to get a little lucky in a game like this when I think it's as close as it is. So those are the things I'm looking at. Some special teams issues, run the football, and cross your fingers.
Yeah, I think that last point we could both say. I think you have to have some fortunate bounces when you're looking at games like this. You got to hope that as the home team that you get a few. And look, Seattle didn't get all of those in that last matchup. They didn't. When the Rams were getting that big lead, there were some plays that just didn't bounce their way, and they found a way to still win it. There were some bad luck plays in the first matchup, but you could say that for the Rams too. So it's who gets the most big breaks in this game. But as far as away from the fortunes aspect, if the Rams run the football or not, well, however much they decide to run it, like that game changed with Rashid Shaheed's return for a touchdown, but it also changed with Seattle's run defense, which has been the best in the NFL pretty much this entire season. But both games these teams have played, the Rams have had success in the first half running the football. Mm-hmm. They have to find a way to win on first and second down against the run consistently and give their defensive line a chance to actually rush the passer. I don't think it's been that they can't get to Matthew Stafford. It's been the Rams have been getting in 3rd and 2 and 3rd and 3 situations often, and then you can't pin your ears back and get after the quarterback. It's been advantageous for the Rams. They need more 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 6s so that they can let Leonard Williams and Uchenna Nwosu and Demarcus Lawrence get after Matthew Stafford, which they did in the fourth quarter to make that comeback in that game. So I think early down run defense, that might be the biggest thing for the Seattle Seahawks in this game. And I also need to see this team that doesn't normally have coverage busts. They had some big coverage busts in that Week 16 game. Full week of preparation. You can't have excuses about fitting too much in the playbook for this week or in your game plan. They need to play sound, fundamental coverage, no scheme breakdowns. If they do that, I think they got a really good chance to win. And on offense, it'd be easy for me to say, just hand it off to K9 and let him go. That's got to be a given with the way they're running the football. But I think they need 4 pass plays of 20-plus yards from Sam Darnold in this game to win. And that doesn't necessarily mean they have to be downfield vertical shots. It could be creating after the catch on an intermediate pass or in the screen game, which they've had success against the Rams with. But they got to generate some explosives because the Rams have been giving them up. You have got to generate those. And I think a couple of those plays do need to be the downfield, take your shot variety, and exploit a defense that has given up and gifted quite a few of those since Christmas. So post-Christmas, they've been Santa Claus in some of that regard. Seattle's got to take advantage. Sam Darnold's got to play with confidence and balance being aggressive with being careless with the football, which I think he's done a lot better job the last 5 or 6 games of doing that. But they got to get some of those shot plays to have a chance to win this one against this Rams defense. All right, let's look at the spread. 2.5 points, and that makes sense when you consider, as you said, it's 1 point separating these two teams in their 2 games they have played. 1 yard separating. I mean, they basically have been clones of each other in those games. So a 2.5 point spread, it almost feels a little bit too big. I would be totally fine with a 1 point spread and understand that. And I think from a prediction standpoint, I mean, I don't know how you could predict that this game is not going to be inside 3 points either way with what we've seen. I'm expecting that it's going to be that very tight-knit battle that basically whoever's got the ball last is going to dictate who wins this one, whether it's the defense making a big play or the offense coming through. But, it's going to boil down to who's got the ball last, it feels like, because that's what these games have been all about. So I think 2.5 is too big, to be honest with you.
Stay up to date all year on the Seattle Seahawks and the LA Rams by subscribing to Locked On Seahawks or Locked On Rams on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. You're Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, Jared Stidham and the Broncos have their work cut out for them in the AFC title game. Before we get to that, the Bucs have found their next play caller on offense. The NFL playoffs are rolling along, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a Profit Boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple Profit Boosts you can apply to the bets you like most. Open your Profit Boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boosts let you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback, player, coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your Profit Boost pack every NFL playoff game day. The Buccaneers are bringing in a former Falcons offensive coordinator called plays in Tampa Bay.
The Bucs have hired their offensive coordinator, and it is Zach Robinson. Of course, Robinson spent the last 2 years with the Falcons. Prior to that, he was under Sean McVay in Los Angeles. And look, I like this hire. I said it early on in the process that I thought Robinson would be a good fit in Tampa, but then Harbaugh gets fired, so Monken becomes available. McDaniel gets fired in Miami. The landscape began to change. That said, I had mentioned from the jump that Robinson would be considered a splash hire. And while some of you may disagree, I still stand by that. This is a great move by the Bucs and Todd Bowles to bring him in here. Now, we talked about this on the Squad Show, that was live Wednesday night, that as we were live, it was coming up on 10 p.m., Greg Allman had tweeted out that the meeting with Robinson was still ongoing. That right there was pretty much a solid indicator that Robinson was going to be the guy. And then Ian Rappaport said on NFL Network Thursday morning that Robinson had completed his interview and headed for the airport when Todd Bowles called him and told him not to leave. that he was their guy. They wanted to hire him and to come back. So that meeting went late into the night. The deal began to get finalized there. It was finished up this morning, and the Bucs have officially announced that Zach Robinson is their offensive coordinator.
The Philadelphia Eagles, on the other hand, are still looking for an offensive coordinator after Mike McDaniel chose the Chargers. Could limitations at quarterback be harming the Eagles' search?
Well, that sucks, but it's also kind of encouraging. Mike McDaniel chooses the Los Angeles Chargers OC job over the Philadelphia Eagles. Despite the Eagles having McDaniel as their number one choice, he chooses Justin Herbert over Jalen Hurts, which I do think is understandable. Jalen Hurts has had the better career than Justin Herbert. He is the better player. I think Justin Herbert is a playoff choker. But Justin Herbert is the more consistent passer right now. Who he is right now fits McDaniel's offense more than Jalen. So it's discouraging that my number one guy and the Eagles' number one guy is now gone. But it is encouraging that Mike McDaniel was the Eagles' number one choice. That tells me they are looking for someone that is going to change this offensive scheme completely, that's going to evolve the passing game, that's going to attempt to evolve Jalen Hurts' game. That's why McDaniel, to me, was the number one choice, and to hear he was the Eagles' top candidate as well, that is music to my ears, even though it sucks they couldn't get it.
Over in the NBA, the Rockets travel to face Tyrese Maxey and the Sixers.
Tyrese Maxey helps the 76ers to a 128-122 overtime victory over Kevin Durant and the Houston Rockets. Now, there never should have been an overtime period, blown call or non-call by the referees, as Kevin Durant clearly had a goaltend on Tyrese Maxey's layup that would have given the Sixers a 2-point advantage with 3 seconds left in regulation. But the Sixers did go on to the overtime period, and Tyrese Maxey kept pouring it on. 17 of his 36 points came in the fourth quarter in overtime combined. Meanwhile, Joel Embiid, how about a triple-double for the big man? He comes up with 32 points, 15 rebounds, and 10 assists. Paul George also helping the cause for the Sixers, coming up clutch in overtime with an assist, with a rebound, with a clutch 3. And also Kelly Oubre started over Dom Barlow and made Nick Nurse look smart. He drops in 26 points on 10 of 14 shooting.
And in the NHL, the Wild hosted the Red Wings.
Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Zuccarello go together like peanut butter and jelly, and I would be willing to bet Detroit is probably sick of it after seeing the pair combine for 4 goals against the Red Wings in a 4-3 overtime win. Kaprizov, after just 3 goals in his last 16 games, scores twice, including once on the power play. Matt Zuccarello with a couple of goals as well. And the Wild win a thrilling, entertaining game against the Detroit Red Wings, seeing their former goaltender Cam Talbot in net and watching the Wild come away with an exciting overtime win at home. A lot of fun for the Minnesota Wild. Quinn Hughes all over the place. Joel Eriksson Ek back in the lineup. Things on the up for the Minnesota Wild. Make sure to follow along with Locked On Wild so you don't miss out throughout the rest of the year.
With quarterback Bo Nix out, the Broncos enter Sunday's AFC Championship showdown with the Patriots as the largest home underdogs ever in a conference title game. Locked On Broncos host Sarah Bettinger sat down with Locked On Patriots host Nick Cattles to preview what is expected to be an uphill battle for Sean Payton and backup quarterback Jarrett Stidham.
What has to happen for the Broncos and the Patriots to punch their ticket to Santa Clara for Super Bowl 60? We're going to tell you on today's crossover Thursday edition. Locked On Broncos and Locked On Patriots. Once again, thank you so much to all you everydayers out there. We appreciate you so much. Nick, I want to defer to you. I want to know, what does it got to take for the Patriots to get there? Because obviously the big narrative is, right, I mean, I guess you can say never. I think they've only played 2 AFC championships in Denver, right? But the Patriots are looking to get off the old schneid when it comes to winning the AFC title in Denver. So what do they got to do to make it happen?
First, they got to win a couple of rounds against Denver's offensive line. I obviously would not expect them to dominate that matchup. I would not expect them to get home as much as they got home against the Chargers and the Texans. Realistically, looking at it, the Chargers offensive line was a banged up mess. The Houston offensive line was below average and did not have their starting right tackle in Trent Brown. This is a whole different ball game against the Broncos offensive line. So can you win a couple of rounds? Can Calebon Chason make a play or two? Can Milton Williams or Christian Barmore make a play or two against the interior offensive line? You know, if you get Jarrett Stidham in 2nd and long, 3rd and long, that should change the game pretty quickly. So can you win a couple of those rounds? That's one key. Second key, I would say, is take advantage of Vance Joseph's aggressiveness and heavy blitzing. The Denver blitzes a lot. Denver blitzed Josh Allen a ton last weekend. And, you know, Drake Maye, for the most part, I know Pro Football Focus would disagree with this, but Drake Maye has been pretty good against the blitz this year. So, you know, if Vance Joseph is blitzing as much as he usually does, can Drake Maye take advantage of that? And what will Josh McDaniels have drawn up, you know, to try to beat some of those blitzes from Vance Joseph as he tries to change the picture on Drake Maye? And thirdly, I would say throw the kitchen sink at Jarrett Stidham. And this is what the Patriots have done the first couple of playoff games. They threw a lot at Justin Herbert. They threw even more at C.J. Stroud, you know, disguising coverages, all sorts of different pass rushes and in different ways, blitzes, you know, blitzing 5, 6, 7 guys at times, cover 0 at times, running a ton of stunts last week against Houston's offensive line. And I think you'll see more of that. Just throw the kitchen sink at Jarrett Stidham. He hasn't played an NFL game that counts in more than 2 years. Try to put him in a blender, as Mike Vrabel says. And, you know, Carlton Davis, by the way, he was at Wednesday's practice with a non-contact jersey, which means he's already in phase 4 out of the 5 phases in concussion protocol. So right now it looks somewhat promising that Carlton Davis will play on Sunday, which would be a big deal because if you have Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis, you can play more man coverage and be confident in that, which allows you to really throw a different variety of things at Jarrett Stidham.
100%. And speaking of injury updates and things like that, the Broncos had a number of reinforcements as well at their Wednesday practice. Starting center Luke Wattenberg, who's been out since around Christmas time, he was activated off injured reserve, and his backup Alex Forsyth was back at practice as well. We also heard Troy Franklin was out on the practice field. Pat Bryant, the rookie wide receiver who was kind of featured early in the divisional round, he was back on the practice field. J.K. Dobbins, the starting running back, was back out on the practice field, although Sean Payton would not commit to whether or not he was going to play this weekend. So we'll find out what happens there. But I think those are great keys. Honestly, I think that's exactly what has to happen. You're playing against a quarterback who hasn't thrown a regular season pass since the end of the 2023 season. Throw everything at him. Make him make split-second decisions with the football. I think that's absolutely key. For the Denver Broncos, I feel like I mentioned the same keys all season, Nick. I really do. And I pretty much say this every crossover Thursday episode, but it's make the opposing quarterback's life miserable. You talked about that for Jarrett Stidham. I think the Broncos got to do the same thing for Drake Maye, whether it's disguising coverage, whether it's sending blitzes, whether it's disguising blitzes, getting, you know, your guys to win at the front, which they have all season long. Zach Allen, number 1 in quarterback hits. Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, a dynamic duo. Even your backups come in Jonah Ellis and Dondre Tillman, and they can make an impact. So make his life miserable, number 1. Number 2, and this has been a huge problem over the second half of the season for the Broncos, but it's converting in the red zone. Don't settle for field goals. Maybe in a game like this where you expect, okay, the defenses are going to kind of tighten up a little bit. Maybe you do not necessarily want to be overly aggressive if you get like a 4th and goal situation and you have an opportunity to take points or go for it. Maybe you take the points, but at the same time, just convert your red zone opportunities. The Denver Broncos have been one of the best teams in the NFL for the majority of the year, converting in the red zone. It's tapered off here a little bit since the bye week. And then the third key to victory is rally around the backup QB. Everybody else has to have, it's sort of like, you know, if you ever, you know, have a issue with your eye, right? You got something in your eye and you got to, you know, adjust, or, you know, your hearing is damaged for a season, or, you know, you have a cold and you can't smell, your other senses get heightened is what I'm getting at here, right?
Yeah.
That's what the rest of the Broncos roster has to do with Bo Nix out. Like, for so much of the season, the formula has been the same. Stay in games as long as we can, and then Bo is going to put on the Superman cape when he needs to. And that's just not going to necessarily be the case here in this game. At least you can't expect it to be, right?
Right.
This defense needs to come out and do what they do. I mean, they've had games this year where the 50 is the end zone, and offenses are lucky to cross the 50. I'm not saying that's going to happen against the Patriots, but I've been saying all week long, I think that has to be Denver's defensive mentality is like, remember the Titans saying like, don't let them get another yard, right? That's what you need to happen in this game. So it's got to be all the other senses being heightened, right? With your quarterback is out. Everybody else has to be like, all right, I got to really step up in this game. Not that they were taking anything lightly before, but I think that's going to be crucial for them getting this win.
Stay up to date all year on the Denver Broncos and New England Patriots by subscribing to Locked On Broncos or Locked On Patriots on your favorite podcast app. Coming up, the Ravens have found their next head man. The Ravens are turning back toward the Harbaugh tree for their next head coach after turning their backs on John Harbaugh. Chargers defensive coordinator Jesse Minter has been hired by Baltimore as their next head coach. Kevin Ostreicher celebrated the news on yesterday's live stream episode of Locked On Ravens, reacting to the news in real time.
Jesse Minter. He is the next head coach hire for the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore making it official under half an hour ago at this point. And we're going to talk about why the Ravens made this decision, the things that Minter brings to Baltimore, as well as what is actually next for this Baltimore Ravens team, because this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what needs to happen for this team. Now, I want to tell everyone today's episode, Locked On Ravens, is sponsored by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. You need to go to Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. All right. We're going to dive into this here. Big news for Baltimore. Jesse Minter replaces John Harbaugh as the team's next head coach. And I like this hire. I do. I understand there are going to be some things about it that people don't like, and we're going to talk about that. But Minter was one of the hottest head coaching candidates available in this cycle, a great reputation. But obviously, I think the first thing that comes to mind is that Baltimore wanted familiarity here. He does come from the Harbaugh tree, if you will, in terms of coaches. He coached in Baltimore and did a lot with the Ravens before going on to the college ranks in Vanderbilt. And before he did that, his time in Baltimore was a defensive assistant in 2017, and he worked with the defensive backs and then worked with the defensive backs in 2020. And as I mentioned, went to Vanderbilt as their DC. Then he went with Jim Harbaugh to Michigan for a couple of years, won a national championship. So he is a winner, by the way. And then once Jim went to Los Angeles, he followed Jim out there. And just to look a little bit about the Chargers, just from a very general perspective in terms of, what they bring to the table, or I guess brought to the table defensively in the past 2 years with Minter as their defensive coordinator. We'll start in 2024 where the Chargers, their rush defense wasn't great, 27th in the NFL, but they had the 4th rated pass defense in the NFL in terms of yards per attempt, but they were the number 1 scoring defense last year in the NFL, giving up just 301 points per game. They were 3rd in points per drive, 11th in total yards. So that's a really solid unit. And again, the Chargers defensive spending is like they're towards the bottom of the league in defensive spending, if I remember correctly. So he was making more with less in Los Angeles. Now this season, fast forward, pass defense was still good at number 9. They got better in the rushing department at 18th in the NFL. It took a step back in terms of scoring defense at 9, but that's still good. But they jumped up to 5th in total yards allowed, 10th in points per drive. This is a hire that I hope does a couple of things. It, one, reestablishes the defensive standard in Baltimore, the excellence that is expected and required out of that unit for the Baltimore Ravens. Because look, since Lamar Jackson's come into the fold here, this Ravens offense has been explosive, but the Ravens' roots have always been the defensive side of the ball. So Minter's going to come in. He's going to do that. Hopefully, be able to work with Kyle Hamilton really effectively. And there was actually a post or a clip of him talking about when he first got into Los Angeles and the Derwin James factor, which I thought was really interesting. He studied the Ravens 2023 defense to shape the Chargers defense. And there was a quote, I think it was in The Athletic, but it was Minter saying, quote, "When I came here, I really spent a ton of time in meetings watching the 2023 Ravens film, because meeting Derwin and watching his film, I thought he can just get pulled away from the game too much at free safety, honestly. And he's impactful when he's close to the ball and things like that. So really, we just studied what Mike McDonald did with Kyle Hamilton." So again, expect Hamilton to be free flowing in this defense. Minter known for simulated pressures and being able to creatively get to the quarterback. So again, this is all really good and really exciting, and we're going to dive into a lot about what comes next for the Ravens, because this can't just be it. Obviously, there's still going to have to be a staff filled out.
And finally, the 49ers are getting pretty tired of watching the team slowly turn into an infirmary every season, and now they're investigating why it's happening. What exactly are they investigating? Well, everything, according to General Manager John Lynch, even the viral conspiracy theory surrounding the electrical substation near the Niners training facility. Despite said theory having been shot down by various scientists and medical professionals, players are aware of it, even alluding to it being real after George Kittle tore his Achilles against Philadelphia just a couple weeks ago. Will research and investigation bring some health to the organization? Only time will tell. But for now, management is so desperate to keep players on the field, they'll look into absolutely anything just to make the injuries stop. Coming up, do the Rams and Seahawks provide us another down-to-the-wire thriller? And can the Broncos pull off a shocker against the Patriots to score their first Super Bowl appearance since 2016? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.